Ruth Dunne es una investigadora, técnica investigadora de la Teagasc Research Center de Irlanda, en Dublín, con asiento en Dublín. De acuerdo a las referencias que tenemos acá, es una entidad nacional, Teagasc, que se dedica a la investigación, al asesoramiento y el entrenamiento de la industria de agricultura en términos generales y de la alimentación en Irlanda. En este caso, la recomendación y el contacto con Ruth fue hecho por el señor Larry Finney, que Larry Finney es actualmente el presidente del World Hereford Council, es de Irlanda también, y hizo referencia cuando se conocieron con Alejandro en el World Hereford Council de Nueva Zelanda a principio de año, de la importancia que se le da en Irlanda a la utilización de la raza Hereford como cruzante sobre razas lecheras. Por supuesto, la charla de Ruth es en inglés, por lo cual le pedimos, su gentileza fue que nos la mandó pregrabada, pero igualmente decir, pregrabada para no tener ningún tipo de inconveniente en cuanto a la transmisión, etcétera. Pero por supuesto hemos pedido la colaboración de la empresa Cosmos Translations, que vamos a darle agradecimiento, ponemos la placa si tenemos de el logo de Cosmos, que nos está dando un servicio sobresaliente desde que las contactamos a fines de la semana pasada, y en este caso Catalina es la intérprete que va a hacer la traducción simultánea. Para que ustedes puedan acceder a la traducción simultánea, al pie tienen un logo, un icono que dice interpretación, ustedes cliquean y eligen si quieren ver la traducción en castellano, traducción simultánea, o si escucharla directamente en inglés de la voz de Ruth. Así que, bueno, con esto seguimos entonces, Patricio, cargamos adelante Ruth, le agradecemos a la distancia, hemos estado en contacto con ella desde el primer momento.
Hello everyone, my name is Ruth Dunne and I've been asked to give you a short presentation today on the use of Hereford bulls on the dairy herd. And for this I'm going to use an Irish perspective of this topic, so what we currently do here in Ireland and why we do it, how we do it, and the benefits of this crossbreeding practice and some of the practices that these crossbred animals go under here in Ireland. So first to start, I want to give you a little bit of a background about myself. So I live in a lovely place called County Wicklow, which is about an hour south of Dublin for those who have been to Ireland before. And myself and my husband have an indoor spring calving dairy herd of about 130 cows, and we implement this crossbreeding practice. So we put our top cows to Frisian, and then we put the rest of the cows to a cohort of beef bulls from many different breeds. So we would use Hereford, Angus, Limousin, Belgian Blue, Charolais, and then we have a Hereford stock bull that we run with the cows at the end of the breeding season. We keep all the calves to beef, so we rear the calves and we sell the heifers at about 22 months of age to the factory, and the steers are kept for a third season and they either go to the mart or the factory at about 26 months of age. So as you might imagine, I spend most of my free springtime playing with calves. For work, obviously, I'm a research technologist in Teagasc, Johnstown Castle, and there we have a beautiful 250-acre dairy cattle beef research facility where we have about 500 early maturing bred beef cattle. So these would be Angus and Hereford. We also have some Limousines within that, and these are all bought as reared calves and are finished under a 20-month, 21 month and 26 to 28 month systems, heifer and steer systems. We also have about 150 commercial Frisian steers on the farm as well. And there are two trials ongoing at the moment in our research facility, and I will discuss these a little bit later on. So just to give a bit of a background to the Irish dairy industry, just to set the scene, there's about 18,000 dairy farmers in Ireland with an average herd size of 90 cows. The majority of these herds are Holstein Friesian or British Friesian crosses, with some Jersey crosses in the mix as well. There's about 1.5 million dairy cows in Ireland currently, which has increased dramatically over the last couple of years. and the average yield per cow was about 5,500 litres, which is reflective of the grass-based system that we have in Ireland, where we try to reduce the input of concentrates into the diet. The national herd is in the majority spring calving, with cows calving between the end of January and the end of April. And there are some cows or some herds that have cows calving all year round, and some winter milk, autumn calving herds also. But as I said, the majority of the cows are calving in this 12-week period in early spring. So just to see some trends, the red line there is the number of dairy cows, and this has increased a lot since the quotas were abolished in 2015, with farmers looking to increase their output on their farms once the quotas were gone. In the same period, we have seen a decrease in the number of suckler cows in the country. So they would be your continental cow with calf at foot, so they'd be your Limousin Cross or your Belgian Blues. With a lot of those farmers switching that have gone out of that industry, switching to dairy calf to beef production or dairy production. Obviously, with the increase in dairy cows, there's a corresponding increase in calves, and that green line there is the increase in the number of beef sired calves coming from the dairy herd. So what do I mean by dairy beef? And dairy beef is a term I will use throughout this presentation. Dairy beef is beef production from animals that are bred from the dairy herd. So these can be your Frisian Friesians, your Frisian Jersey crossbreds, or your dairy by beef crossbreds. These would be your Frisian by Herefords, for example. And why do we crossbreed? So basically we crossbreed in Ireland to increase the beef productivity of the animal and to increase the value of the progeny for the dairy farmer. So the dairy farmer will get more for their calves if they're crossed to a beef animal, and also that beef animal, when it goes to the factory, is worth more per kilo of carcass weight than if they were just bred to a dairy bull. So how is this crossbreeding implemented in Ireland? So the number of cows within a herd that is available for beef crossing or breeding to a beef bull is determined by the number of cows or number of heifers that need to be bred to replace the cows that are being culled annually. So basically the farm's herd replacement rate, which is usually around 15%. So you're talking in a very fertile herd of between 30 and 40% of the cows within the herd needing to be bred to Friesian in order to breed enough replacements for the cull rate that they are having on the farm. So basically, the way this would work is the best cows are selected for breeding to a Friesian bull. So that would be your high milk yield cows, your early calving cows, your cows that have excellent health traits, and those that are not predisposed to different malailments. So that could be they're not predisposed to lameness, or their teat placement's not right, or they've had mastitis previously and things like that. So once enough cows have been bred to Friesian in order to have enough replacement heifers, the rest of the cows then have the opportunity to be bred to beef. So this is usually in the form of beef AI, and then cows then are cleaned up with a beef stock bull afterwards. Usually the stock bull would be an early maturing type, easy calving bull of a Hereford or Angus. So this graph just shows the change in sire selection for dairy dams over the last 10 years. So as you can see, pre-quota abolishment, so the 2013-2014 period, more and more farmers were breeding their cows to Friesian to have enough replacements or heifers on the ground in 2015 that they could milk greater numbers once the quotas went. So since the quotas went in 2015, we've seen a rapid decline in the number of the percentage of dams within our herd that need to be bred to Friesian. In the same period, we've seen a rapid increase in the number of or the percentage of dams within a herd that are being bred to these early maturing traditional type breeds like your Angus and Hereford. With your Hereford, they're sitting at around 15% in 2019. In the same period from 2009 to 2019, we've seen a decline in the percentage of cows that are being bred to Belgian Blue and Limousines and these later heavier muscled beef breeds. So you can see the Limousine there has declined 2% over that 10-year period. So farmers are now less inclined to use these later maturing breeds and are more inclined to use the early maturing traditional breed types. So what are some of the challenges facing the dairy and dairy beef industry? So one of the biggest challenges at the minute is the exportation of dairy beef calves. So at the minute, we're sitting at around 1.5 million dairy cows. And of those, say, 1.5 million calves that are on the ground, about 180,000 of these calves between 0 and 6 weeks of age are exported. And they're exported mainly to the Netherlands, Spain, and Italy at this age to veal markets. Now, veal is not a common practice here in Ireland. There's no veal operating here currently, and these low-value calves that are going there are generally the Frisian crossbreds with jerseys, the low value, more Holstein type Frisian calves, and even some Frisian by Angus crosses that aren't in demand here and have no profitable way of finishing them. So that's the biggest concern, is the low value of these Frisian calves, that if the export market is gone, what will happen to these calves? So we're looking to try and improve the quality of calves that are available for beef, and to try and come up with some way of reducing the amount of these low value calves. Whether that, and a method of doing that would be to cross more of the Frisian cows, or as high a level of Frisian cows as we can, to a beef bull. Other challenges are the tight margins of dairy beef production systems. So currently, with the low beef prices that we have been receiving the last couple of years, to have a profit of around €200 per animal after you pay for the calf, you will be doing quite well. So in an industry where the margins are that tight, anything that can optimize the value of the carcass at the end or reduce the input and cost of production will have a great impact on the overall profitability of the system. There has also been a challenge in that the results from factories over the last couple of years have shown a decline in the carcass grade of these dairy beef bred animals that are coming from the dairy herd. So if you have a look at this graph, in the period of 2015 to 2017, you can see a rapid increase in the number of heifers and steers that are grading an O- or under that. So even a lot of these now would be your Frisian types, but there is also an increase in the crossbred types, so your Hereford cross and your Angus cross, also grading less than an O equals, which in terms of our grid, which I'll show you in a while, means that those animals at finish are less value per kilo of carcass weight. So what factors influence the dairy farmer's choice of sire? So as I said, herd fertility is the biggest determinant in how many of the cows have to be bred to Frisian. So over the last couple of years, the Irish national dairy herd has had an increase in herd fertility since the introduction of the EBI, which the EBI is the Economic Breeding Index, and with that it places a high value on herd fertility and production traits. So by breeding according to the EBI, farmers have bred greater fertility into their herds, and so less their cows need to be bred to Frisian to have enough replacements, and increasing fertility has also meant that some farmers have been able to avail of the use of sex semen, which then gives them an even greater opportunity to cross the rest of their cows with beef animals. In terms of the beef sire and what determines their choice of beef sire, ease of calving and short gestation are the top two, and I determined that from a survey I conducted in 2017. So obviously these are important in terms of the dairy farmer's milk production, so the longer the shorter the calving interval and the more days in milk, the greater the profit for the dairy farmer. Other factors are calf saleability in breeds. So some farmers have markets of their own for certain breeds and feel that they can sell, for instance, the white-faced beef calf Hereford calf generally will sell easier than your black animal in the mart. If you're keeping a stock bull, docility and temperament is hugely important. Poledness, which is the absence or presence of horns, is important, and some breeds of bulls obviously are hornless, and some sires within certain breeds have been bred to be hornless. This can be a factor when dairy farmers are choosing their sires. And obviously calf quality. Now, unfortunately, in the last number of years, farmers have been more inclined to just stick to ease of calving, short gestation, and have placed little emphasis on calf quality, which has led to the decline in the carcass grading that we have seen. So we're trying to encourage beef farmers to consider calf quality and the terminal traits of beef sires that they choose. So if you look at these factors that influence the dairy farmer's choice, you can see that the early maturing traditional breeds like your Hereford will cater for all of these. Your later maturing breed type, like your Charolais, your Angus, and your Belgian, or your Charolais, your Limousin, your Belgian Blue, tend to be harder calving and longer gestation, which tends to turn a lot of dairy farmers away from their use. So which is why in this bottom graph, you can see that the Hereford and the Angus combined make up over 40% of the percentage of calves that are available for beef production from the dairy herd. So the advantage of crossbreeding for the dairy farmer, as I mentioned, is the ease of calving and short gestation and the higher value for their calves. So you're looking at a Hereford calf being worth about 150 to 250 euros in the mart, depending on its age, sex, and quality. Whereas your Frisian calf, you'd be lucky in some years to get 40 euros for a calf of similar age. And in some cases, these are being nearly given away towards the end of the calving season when they're worth less. For the beef farmer, there's a high demand for certain breeds from beef processors and consumers. For your Hereford type animal, certain customers prefer those steaks because they have a high marbling level. They're known to be juicier and tender because of that. And there's usually a huge demand for that type of steak because they fit nicely in the pack and they're a nice size. They fatten early and quickly from grass. They grade better than your Frisian, so they have a greater value at finishing. And there are breed bonus schemes currently available for the beef farmer who are finishing, say, the Hereford animals. There's a Hereford Prime bonus, which I'll explain later. So if you're killing these animals, there's an extra incentive there in terms of some factories giving this bonus for that type of, for that breed. So as I said, finishing from grass is a huge added bonus to these early maturing type breeds. So in Ireland, we grow grass, we grow a lot of grass, we have a lot of rain, we have a lot of heat in the ground, and we have a lot of humidity. So we grow excellent quality grass all year round. And we grow excellent quality silage for winter forage. So if we can maximize the amount of grass and grass silage within that diet, we maximize the profitability of those systems. And these early maturing Hereford animals, we can finish them off a 21-month system and a 26-month system, avoiding that expensive winter finishing period. So obviously that increases our overall sustainability of our system. In terms of grading, as I said, this is the standardized European grading system for carcasses. So basically, when you look at this grid, there will be a base price offered by the factory, where you see 0, that's where you'd achieve that base price, say of, for example, €4 per kilo. If you go above or below that, that's the so say if you're an O plus there, that'd be your €4 per kilo minus 12 cents. So basically the greater the confirmation score, the greater the price per kilo. And the same with the fat. There's an ideal fat level of around between a 2 plus and a 4 minus. And if you go too far above or below the fat level, you'll get penalized based on this grid. So for your early maturing animal, in your 21, 23 or 26 month system, we are coming around the O plus O equals from the Frisian cow, and grading around a 3 to a 4 in fatness. In comparison, your Frisian type of animal is around an O minus or a P plus and tends to grade lower in fatness score, between a 2 and a 3. So you can see that the value of the carcasses of these beef cross animals is better than the dairy, the Friesian type animal. And the added incentives would be the quality assurance payment. So if you're involved in the quality assurance scheme here in Ireland, where your carcasses are achieving an O equals or greater, you have an extra 8 cents per kilo bonus. Your Friesian type animal doesn't generally meet this specification. In terms of the Hereford prime breed bonus then, where your animal achieves a certain carcass spec, there's an extra 10 to 14 cents per kilo for these Hereford type animals within certain factories. So they need to meet this O equals and a 2+ fat score to achieve this bonus. And also they need to be within 240 and 380 kilos carcass weight. They also have to be below 30 months of age. So just to give a breakdown of the systems and how we achieve these finishing systems. So the calves are born in the springtime, they are fed around 1 kilo per day of grass and are housed in November, gaining about 0.7 to 0.8 kilos per day of grass. Their live weight target at housing is dependent on when they were born, so the later born animals would achieve around the 190 kilos, whereas the early born, February born animal would have a target housing weight of around 230 kilos. For their first winter then, they are fed ad-lib good quality silage with 1.5 to 2 kilos of concentrate and with a target average daily gain of 0.6 kilos going out to grass between 260 and 300 kilos live weight. For the second season of pasture, they are managed very well on grass and trying to achieve about 0.9 kilos per day before they are supplemented in mid-August with 2.5 to 3 kilos of concentrate for 60 days with a target to have them killed in November at around 500 kilos live weight. So this is your 21-month heifer system where, as you can see, we're maximizing the amount of grass in the diet and killing off grass and avoiding having to finish them on an intensive concentrate diet during a second winter. So for this, our carcass performance would be a weight of 250 kilos, a conformation score of an O equals, O plus, and a fat score of a 3 minus 3 equals. So this would avail, achieving these carcass weights would mean we would get a good position on the grid, and then we'd also avail of the quality assurance payments and the Hereford Prime bonus. For our 26 to 28 month steer system, which is what we run with our steers in Johnstown currently, for that the first season and the first winter are the same as the heifers. The second season then they're on silage or on grass only, and they're housed in October, November at a 490 kilo live weight. For their second winter, they're maintained on silage only, and they gain about a 0.5 kilo per day. So it turned out again for a third season of grass in March at 590 kilos, where they burst on with compensatory growth and have a target average daily gain of 1.3 kilos per day at grass. For the last 60 days then at grass, they'll be fed about 2.5 kilos of concentrate to be finished in June, July at between 620 and 650 kilo carcass weight or live weight. So 620 to 650 kilo live weight will give you around a 320 to 340 kilo carcass weight, and we're trying to achieve an O equals, O plus confirmation score and fat score of 3. So I'm flying through this. In terms of the current research at Johnson Castle, there's 2 trials ongoing. So we have a herbage allowance or stocking rate trial where we're looking at 3 stocking rates, a 3.2, a 2.9 and 2.6 livestock units per hectare, where our aim is to establish the optimum herbage allowance that aims to increase the carcass output while also investigating the environmental impacts of reducing the herbage allocation and the impact that these stocking rates have on animal performance. In the second trial that's ongoing that has these same animals under it is a Teagasc sire evaluation trial, which we're running in conjunction with ABP, who are the Anglo beef processors. For this trial, we're looking to identify the most suitable beef bull genetics for crossing on the dairy herd to ultimately improve the efficiency and profitability of dairy beef production. So we have Angus, Limousin and Herefords running under these trials, and within those breeds we're looking at specific sires and evaluating the progeny performance throughout their lifetime and their performance at slaughter, and looking to compare different sires with the aim to find bulls that are optimal for crossing on the dairy herd to improve dairy beef production. So just to have a look at some of the performance that we've seen from just looking at the breed differences. So we've killed over 400 heifers, and as you can see, we're meeting that carcass weight and killing them at 20 to 21 months of age, and they're reaching a carcass weight of 260 kilos, and with a confirmation score of O equals, O plus, and FAST score of 3 plus 4 minus, which is where we want to be. For the steers, we've killed about 400 of these as well, and the Herefords there are hitting the 320 kilo carcass weight at 26 months of age. The confirmation score is slightly below where we'd like to be, at an O minus, O equals, and the FAST score is where we want at 3 plus. I believe that this O minus is reflective of the type of animal that's coming down the line. So we're looking to establish what animals are achieving the greater confirmation scores and encouraging the use of those bulls on the dairy herd. So within breed, the sires have massive variation in terms of the performance of the progeny. So we've looked at over 20 sires per breed, so over 70 sires in total. And I've just pulled out a few here to show you the difference. So you can see if we just take the Herefords, and heifers within that breed and within those sires, you can see there's a massive difference in carcass weight per day of age at slaughter. So some of these Herefords are fattening earlier and achieving lower carcass weights, but we've evened this out across the board by dividing it by age of slaughter, and some of these Herefords aren't killing heavy, which has a massive impact on their profitability at the end. In addition, there is a huge difference in confirmation score. So as you can see, there's some bulls like HG4291 that are achieving an O minus on average, which means that a lot of his progeny are grading a P, which is no better than what a Frisian would kill out as. But you're paying more for the calf, so you're undermining your profit there straight away. In terms of if you look there at your HG2043, he's grading an O plus, his progeny are grading an O plus on average, which means that some of his calves are grading R minuses, which is great, which is really, really good for a Hereford cross. So we want to encourage farmers to use the likes of HG2043 over the likes of HG4291. So what does this mean? Like, what are we trying to show farmers, and what does this mean on a commercial basis in terms of money to the farmer, to the dairy beef farmer? So this is a slide I stole from my colleague Stephen Connolly in 2017, where he was looking at similar bulls to us on a research farm by ABP, and he did a price comparison of what the farmers would achieve by using two different bulls. So he looked at FRZ versus DPS. DPS had a 38 kilo heavier carcass at finish, and because of its better grading, it was receiving 6 cents per kilo heavier or higher carcass or higher price per kilo. And because of the heavier carcass and higher price, that meant that animals from DPS were receiving 170 euros more than animals that were coming from FRZ. So that's 170 euros more to a farmer that's buying calves from one bull versus the other, which is a huge amount of money, considering that this could be the farmer's entire profit in a year where the beef price is poor. So this is why we are really, really trying to drive home here in Ireland that while crossbreeding is excellent, and we're trying to encourage farmers to increase the value of their calves by crossbreeding as many of their cows as they can with beef bulls, we are also trying to ensure that they understand that the choice of beef bull is hugely important within breed. So that, say, if they're using a Hereford or an Angus bull, that they need to not only look at the ease of calving and short gestation, but they have to look at the terminal traits in terms of confirmation scores, calf growth rates, and carcass weights in order to improve the profitability for the dairy beef farmer. So in summary, crossing dairy cows with beef breeds has benefits for all parties involved. So the dairy farmer has the opportunity to increase the value of their calf, The crossing with Hereford bulls improves the carcass quality of the progeny for the dairy beef farmer who's finishing them, and this is due to greater daily muscle growth and a greater muscle size. They're grading better in general on the grid and receiving a higher price per kilo because of this. However, there is large variation in the genetic potential of different Hereford sires, and this is something that farmers really need to be vigilant with when they're crossbreeding. So that's me. Thanks very much, and I hope you got something out of my presentation today. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to email me on ruth.dunne@teagasc.ie.
Buenísimo, Catalina, muchísimas gracias. Y buen dato lo que nos deja Ruth, que bueno, aunque sea a la distancia, ahí está su dirección de correo y desde el primer momento que nos atendió excelentemente y con muy buena voluntad, así que desde ya que las preguntas que le lleguen, desde ya se las va a contestar. Como esto es grabado, no tenemos preguntas en directo, pero bueno, tienen la posibilidad de hacerla. Así que le reitero un agradecimiento a Ruth a la distancia, un agradecimiento, Catalina, por la traducción muy interesante y muy prolija. Espero que todos la hayan aprovechado.